that here in just a few minutes. But first off, what we want to do is dive into some of this content here. And first off, Chris was going to go through and describe the first of 3 strategies that we've looked at over the last several years of buying and selling sites. And the first one of the 3 is the hub strategy for buying websites. So Chris, do you want to kind of dive into this part of it a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, David. So I think probably a good place to start this conversation is just talking about our evolution and how we started out and how we got to the point where we are now and using this specific hub strategy. When we started out, David and I, we were didn't really know a lot about going out and buying websites, and so our first strategy that we had was really what we call, let's go buy anything that looks like a deal. And we would just go out there and in really any market, any size of deal, as long as it looked like it was a good deal, we'll just go out and buy it. And that's how we started. And we learned a lot. We made a ton of mistakes. We did have some wins with that strategy, but it wasn't really the best strategy. And David and I started learning a little bit more as we went along about valuations and some of those types of things. And we started learning and getting some training programs like the one that we offer at Buying and Selling Websites. And we started learning that the valuation of something around 1 times annual earnings at the time when we were getting into this was pretty typical. So we kind of tweaked our strategy a little bit and stopped doing just anything that looked like a deal to really anything that was kind of under 1 times the annual earnings on the valuation of a site. Again, still all over the place in terms of markets. And that was going well for a while, but we started running into these scenarios where certain sites had just a lot of potential, and we knew that if we were to take that site on, that we could add a lot of value in terms of revenue relatively quickly. So sticking with our model of just only buying sites at 1 times annual earnings was limiting us, because we had some sites that were maybe selling for 2 times annual earnings that we felt could still be good values for us. And so we started tweaking that a little bit even in looking at kind of our own unique valuation model that we started building out for ourselves. And the challenge with that model, though, was that we started getting into a lot of different markets. I mean, we were in board game markets. We were in ebook markets. We had sites with different business model, AdSense sites, affiliate-based websites, those kinds of things. And so it kind of felt very scattered and very disorganized, and it wasn't really a very good overall strategy. So we started developing this concept of a hub strategy. And so from buying anything that looked like a deal, now what we do is we have 3 specific markets that David and I are in that we look at buying sites in, and we actually limit our purchases, if we're entering a market, into sites that actually are real businesses. They have some service or product or something that's adding a lot of value to the web to them. And that's how we'll first start out in a market. And then what we'll do is essentially go out and acquire complementary websites and leverage the knowledge and the business model that we've built around that one core business in that market and just expand from there. So on the screen you'll see here, we gave an example of what you might do with like a weight loss type of website. And so at the core of this strategy is determining some business model or some product, service, something that you can provide which adds a lot of value that you can charge for, and even something that you can pay for traffic to that for. And what you can do from then is to start thinking about all the different sub-markets and complementary markets that exist within there. So if you take your example here of a weight loss e-course, something maybe that you charge a monthly fee for access or something like that, you can start looking at maybe a mobile app that's in this market that you can go out and acquire and leverage the knowledge that you've learned and the product that you already have there and apply it to those specific the traffic that website is getting. So it's very, very powerful from that perspective. And what we started looking at more and more is the advantages that you get from this type of thing. we started realizing it's so much easier to spot kind of the undervalued websites because you already have the knowledge of that market and you understand what's kind of going on in there, and you'll start seeing sites as you're looking at this that aren't really leveraging what you guys are doing. Another great example here is if maybe you've done a lot of split testing and things like that within your website, and you can go out and find a similar website that's getting similar traffic as you, and essentially just apply that same knowledge that you've learned in terms of what works for split testing to that website. And the advantage here is that you end up being able to pay probably a lot more than somebody like who David and I, when we first started, which is just going out and finding a deal and not really knowing all the value that you can add and the speed at which you can add that value. And we've actually looked at this just in some of the companies that we follow out there. There's a couple of major companies that use this exact strategy in their acquisitions. And David, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of those.
Yeah, certainly. And again, I mean, to just reemphasize what Chris said, I mean, to be able to have something before that you maybe bought at $30,000 and had a 30x worth, by just changing it around from $1,000 a month to driving revenue, let's say at $3,000 a month, all of a sudden now it's a 10x in terms of monthly ratio of what you're buying that site for. So just because you can make a few changes based on what we're talking about. And some great examples, though, of that, one of which being a company called Rebellion Media. They, when you go to their website, show their brands, and they've got all different kinds of brands. And when you look at it, I mean, they have fighting, MMA type stuff, carsort.com, twilert.com, sortable.com, some different ones when you look at it. But then their latest press release was a new website that they had just purchased. And in the press release, they state their strategy, which is called TRACE, which is Traffic, Revenue, and Content Engine. And they're focusing in on 4 specific channels: health and wellness, sports, technology, and entertainment. And what they've done is that they're focusing in specifically on also buying technology that drives that engine as well. And I'll talk a little bit about what that all means when we put it all together. But they're a good example of a site or a business that's actually pulling this together from an acquisition standpoint and driving those particular channels. Another really good example is Internet Brands. If you haven't heard of Internet Brands, they started out as carsdirect.com, ended up building up a network of sites in the automotive niche, ended up taking that company that was all of these websites public, and then in 2009 or 2010, they were bought out by a venture capital firm for roughly $600 million from being public. So now they're private again. And give you an idea of some of the stuff that they've done. But I mean, again, a $600 million business here using this kind of a strategy. And these are their 9 core websites or niches that they'll buy websites in. But when you look at it, automotive is by far where they have the majority of all their websites. It looks like business and careers are the next 2 that they're starting to buy quite a few sites in. The others, they have a little bit, maybe 6 or 7 different sites in each one. Here's an example is Money in Business. What they did, they went out and bought businessfinance.com, loan.com. So what they do is they start out by buying a authority type site in that niche, and then they'll go buy the other ones. So the authority in the business finance niche is businessfinance.com, and they drive a tremendous amount of traffic. In the loan niche, it's obviously loan.com. And then they started going out and started buying up some of these other ones. But as you can see here, they've got about 8 or 9 sites. When you look at their, I couldn't even list them all. I don't want to create a slide for every one of their sites. But they say over 100, there's probably 200 websites that they bought. But their core is autos.com, sellmycar.com, carsdirect.com. And then what they did is they went out and found other websites that were kind of, as Chris described, in that hub. And a lot of forums is what they bought because obviously car dealers and car collectors and people like buying cars are in the forums a lot. So they have NissanForum.com, MitsubishiForum.com, Buick Forum, Blazer Forum, Audi Forum, Audi World. They own just a ton of different sites, all driving back to their core business, as we talked about. So, and this is their strategy too, is driving back to the core business. But they also, if you notice here, talk about advertising on their site. So when you have 185 million page views, 38 million monthly visitors over 100 different websites, obviously you're going to want to create some type of advertising rep model around that. Now, on a much smaller scale compared to them, Chris and I also have what we've started building out in the financial niche, financial education niche, and started doing some advertising with our sites in that niche. And it's working very well because as soon as you tell somebody who's interested on one site that you've got all these other sites, now they start bringing more. And what's interesting is when you have one person in a particular niche in that niche, the broader niche, comes over to you to advertise, all of a sudden all their competitors notice that they're doing it, and they'll start coming over to you too. So it's almost like as soon as you get one of them, the big followers start showing up at the same time. So that's the Internet Brands model, and it goes back to our model that we just talked about, the hub niche model, the bundle strategy, which is taking a technology platform, and this is what Internet Brands did, is they're using the same Internet technology behind all of these sites, and when they acquire a site, they dump that technology onto it, so it's all on the same system. So they're not creating all these different systems and different websites and things out there. They run it behind with one platform, and they acquire the authority, acquire additional sites, and then bundle that traffic for advertising. And it's a great model and a great system for it. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was going to mention there was just an example from our own deals that we've done. And going back to the slide earlier that David briefly went over, we were looking at doing a deal with a website, which was essentially a competitor of a site that we already owned. And we had done a lot of work in figuring out which affiliate offers were converting really well for the traffic in that market. And so that person actually came to us to sell the site we were looking at. And he wanted $30,000 for it, and it was doing about $1,000 a month at the time. And so if you would have, if you wouldn't have been knowledgeable in this market and already been in it, perhaps you may not have realized that 30 times monthly for this site actually probably wasn't too bad of a deal for us because we already knew exactly which affiliate offers we could add to that site as soon as we took it over, something that would literally take us hours. I think it ended up taking us about 2 days, probably about 4 hours per day, to take that site from a $1,000 a month site to about a $3,000 a month site. So we ended up buying the valuation that the seller was putting on it was 30 times monthly, but for us, once we took it over, it really was like a 10 times monthly site within 2 days. Ideally we could have bought it for less than that, but the seller was very, very stuck at that $30,000 price point. So the power that we've seen from this model is definitely there. We've had great successes with applying it. So, and there's so many ways you can do it, as David mentioned here.